If you had just suffered betrayal at the hands of the brother you have looked up to, you probably think this is the end of the road, right? Wrong, because if you're Stein the Lethal Assassin, you'll regress back into the past, clown your siblings in your battles, reclaim the demonic sword, and also defeat a high-level monster, all the while being a badass 10-year-old. Are you curious to see how he undoes his troubles of the past in this thrilling, unique story? Then grab some popcorn as we dive right into his life. Cold expectations upholding his family's honor rummaged through his brain as he navigated through his father's words. He knew that his father wanted him to only live up to his brother's shadow, forsaking any desires of his own. Down at the battlefield, Cheyenne Vert is gasping in his final moments in a defeated state, a lone knight who is holding his own against the fiercest warriors on the face of the continent. His callous opponent relishes this experience, the experience of betraying the young lord. Boris shows a demonic grin to Cyan, who is angered to find himself betrayed and questions whether the Emperor engineered such a situation. Boris is shocked to witness Cyan's devastating transformation as he is engulfed in a profound red aura, confirming his status as an assassin to the Mist. Boris believes that the Mist faction is rather below their order of light, as he seeks to destroy this rebel who is an assassin. Cyan is enraged and wants to crush Boris instantly, warning him of what he's going to put him through. Bro said, "Come catch these hands." Boris tells him that Cyan's plans to escape won't work even with his secret technique, as he has cast a 9-star magic barrier to surround them. Cyan reflects on wanting to get out of the place to somehow inform his brother so that they can figure out the culprit responsible. Cyan vows to destroy the barrier at once, but that's when a voice stops him dead in his tracks. Cyan knew that he had to live up to his brother Echel's expectations, and now this blonde man was just standing in front of him, as he was the one responsible for betraying him. Cyan flops to the ground, unable to take the fight as he begs for an explanation from his brother. Echel tells Cyan that he's performed his duties well for all of them, especially him. He profanely talks about alleviating Cyan's burdens from his shoulders, but Cyan himself can't even understand why he's being faced with such a situation. Man, this guy is such a piece of work. Echel slanders him for being consumed by the sinister fog and resigning his status as a human. In his eyes, Cyan is just a murderer who deceived them all this time without being wary of his sins. Cyan contemplates his words and enters an enraged state, knowing that he helped Echel succeed in the feudal conflicts, the suppression of the demon army, and even a whole war for the unification of their continent. Damn. Cyan basically carried his brother only to receive slave treatment. Cyan had done everything he could by this point, only to be rewarded with a stinging betrayal by the one he was shadowed by. Cyan is enveloped in his anger after knowing that his brother wants to toss him aside for his undying loyalty of 20 years. He no longer cares about his biological limits and wants to put everything he can into this moment. The knights are stunned to realize that Cyan's powers have far surpassed a human's level. Cyan laughs at his brother for being the greatest hero of their continent and still being intimidated by his brother to the point where he plans to kill him. Oof, someone get this man some ice because he just got roasted. Cyan thinks that his brother has stooped to the lowest of the low and begins his brilliant attack. He only seeks to finish off Echel with one potent strike, a vital point where Echel can't heal himself. However, Boris constantly intervenes in their battle and protects Echel from any openings using his barriers. Echel counters by stabbing his brother at last, delivering a deadly strike. Echel despises his brother in his final few moments and declares that he has never trusted Cyan once in his life. Yikes. Now that's really gotta hurt. Cyan's transformation fades as he lies defeated and bloodied on the ground. He can't move a muscle and thinks that this is his eventual end, living a life like a fool and a fiddle to his brother's expectations. He tries to attack Echel once again in the hopes of killing him, except the blade is caught just before it reaches his throat. Echel exhausts his magic and destroys Cyan. Yeah, quite literally with his god-tier sword too. The boy wakes up gasping for air as his maid, Emily, tells him that it's about time for him to get ready. Cyan doesn't know why or what Emily's doing here and realizes that he hasn't seen her for 20 years. He also knows that this room is the one he had as a child, and the furniture is identical to that. Cyan examines his face and naturally finds out that he's returned to his childlike state again. Emily scolds him for being a coward and for not entering the sparring match, but he doesn't know a thing that she's talking about. At the Duke's castle, Cyan confirms to himself that it is indeed the past and wonders if this is just his life flashing before his eyes. Bro is so shocked, he's like, this ain't real. He remembers this day, it happened 27 years ago. To be exact, it was a year before he entered the academy. There was a sparring match held at the beginning of each month in their territory, an event important to the likes of his father, who was the Duke. His opponent was none other than Kranz Vert. who was his half-brother sharing an identical age. Kranz's mother was Margaret Argaeus, the Duchess, which is also why, despite the two of them being the youngest of the four sons, Kranz happened to be the favorite and received more attention. Of course, it has to be this douchebag or brat. Cyan, on the other hand, was an illegitimate child of unknown origins who faced humiliation the same day. He became a laughingstock to everyone around him. The Emperor himself shunned the boy and eventually lost all interest in him. Right now, Emily is suggesting that he should just forfeit, but Cyan believes that he'll win. Bro for real said, "Nah, I'd win." He is surprised to hold the rapier's weight and thinks that it's pretty heavy for his feeble child self. Cyan knows that this is no dream or his life flashing before his eyes, as he knows that no magic can be capable of producing such an illusion. He wonders if he has truly returned to the past, while Kranz slanders him for being courageous enough to show up. If only he knew about the whooping he's about to receive. Cyan wonders if he is capable of influencing the past as their battle begins. Kranz rushes forth for a strike and happily lunges at his brother, while Cyan can't help but perceive him as being a slow snail, easily dodging his strike without worry. He then defeats Kranz at a moment's notice while also making a fool out of him by stubbing his leg. Both the Duke and the Duchess are surprised, while the little demon Cyan stares Kranz down and still wants to do more. He remembers that Kranz treated him miserably for his own entertainment, and his harassment only continued at the academy. Cyan fires up in a rage so prominent that he wants Kranz to remember this beating forever. Cyan wants to live only for himself and beats his brother, Black and Blue, suffering a crushing defeat in their sparring match. The Duke postpones his planned journey to meet with Cyan, who thinks that he made quite an impression on him during his match. Cyan recalls how the King's Knight Jurkin personally escorted him to his office. Cyan comes to meet the Duchess and thinks that she's returning from the infirmary thanks to the whooping Kranz received. Boy knows she's royally pissed for the right reasons. The Duchess is enraged at what he did to Kranz and is about to leave when she reminds Cyan of his lowly class. The Duchess howls at him for being crude because he's an illegitimate child after all, basically pressing all of Cyan's buttons. Enraged, Cyan turns to give her a deadly look, wondering if he should end the witch's life right this moment. Damn, she's really testing his patience right now. Cyan knows that he can just prolong her suffering and do it nice and slow in the future. He tells the Duchess that he's going to be entering the academy with Kranz and reminds the lady that she should be especially worried for his son graduating with all of his limbs intact. Blue, shots fired. The Duchess is immediately ticked and is about to give Cyan the Asian parent treatment, but Jurkin intervenes in their matter by apologizing that they have a meeting to attend. Cyan snickers behind the knight and thinks that he's won this encounter. He knows that the Duke's knight is the most reassuring figure for him, as he doesn't even bend to the Duchess's whims. Wah, that's one Sigma knight right there. Cyan enters his father's office and respectfully greets him. He recalls how this is the first time he's ever talked to him in 15 years. The man known as Duke Williersvert is the great lord who rules over Velias, the western territory of the Wusif Empire. He is often given the moniker as the guardian of the continent. He is the great hero gifted with potent magic and a clever mind, the one who stopped the invasion of the demons, and the man who shouldered a duty that no one ever asked him to. Until his death during the invasion of the Demon King, his father's only wish was for peace on the continent. Honestly, his father is such a Chad for doing all that. However, his memory of the man is slightly different, as he had been the one who chose to live his entire life in service to others. In the most respectful of words, Cyan thinks that his father is a fool. Duke Williersvert claims that Cyan knew the trajectory of the sword in a precise manner and recalls how Kranz lunged at him while Cyan responded by only slightly turning his body. He wants to know where Cyan learned the art of swordsmanship, indicating his clever perception. Cyan declares that he only trained by himself at night, but his father is no fool in this regard, and he recalls how the boy had no interest in the way of the sword in the past. He doesn't know how Cyan was able to hide this talent all along. Cyan confesses that he doesn't want to draw attention to himself, while his father believes that he has outclassed the likes of Kranz by doing so. The Duke claims that his treatment at the end was unnecessary, a question which Cyan thinks is hard to get over. He doesn't know if this is to judge his character as a person. Cyan tells his father that he is only looking to prove himself. He wholeheartedly believes that he is superior to Kranz and comes to the conclusion that superiority is the purpose behind the sparring matches. The Duke chuckles at his response and is impressed by his sharp answer. He confesses that Cyan will be an extraordinary asset to his brother Ishel one day. However, that's when Cyan freezes again. He relives his memories of being stabbed by his brother and realizes that nothing changed in the end, as his father is still obsessed with Ishel. Bro is casually having PTSD moments. Cyan is annoyed. but the Duke wants to offer him a reward for winning the match and asks for Cyan's desires. He thinks that he will simply destroy everything that Echelle has set out to do and makes an interesting request. The scene switches to Emily, who is shocked that Cyan told his father that he wants to be on the front lines. She can't believe that he made such an outlandish request, as he would be facing various monsters and demonic beasts. This maid has no idea how OP this man is. Their territory is Velia's, the westernmost region of the Wusif Empire, the only place in the empire that is referred to as the front lines. The Lemia Valley is the place where the centuries-long war against the demon continues to rage to this day. His father was obviously against Cyan's wishes to go there, but eventually consented on a single condition. The Duke demanded that he should become qualified within a month to enter the Lemia Valley. Except he doesn't know the qualification criteria as of this moment. Cyan thinks that he will try to build up as much muscle mass as possible so that he can compare himself to his peers. He likes the fact that he has battle instincts from his previous life, and can also feel a bit of magic surging through his body. Cyan knows that he will be able to make a confident use of his magic if he trains his body to its limits and wants to train immediately. Ellis barges in to meet Cyan, grabbing him by the collar and scolding him for his decision to go out to the front lines. Ahaha, the squeaker is getting scolded by everyone. Cyan's sister Ellis thinks that he's just being overconfident after laying defeat to Crayons in a mere sparring match and summons him to the rooftop. On the beautiful night sky, we see Cyan facing off against Ellis, who wants him to withstand 3 minutes against her attacks if he desires to go to the front lines. Cyan doesn't believe that their combat is necessary, but Ellis asks him an important question. She interrogates if the boy is interested in carrying on the family name, which puzzles Cyan for a moment as he doesn't know where she is coming from. Ellis somehow takes his silence as a confirmation and urges him to draw his sword. Cyan is exhausted after fighting with Crayons and becomes especially surprised when his sister charges at once. Ellis is beyond shocked that a 10-year-old boy is able to deflect her first attack, while Cyan's astonished that she's going all out against her little brother despite their difference in age. Not gonna lie, I'd be mad too, haha. Ellis is stunned to note that he was able to parry her long sword with a tiny rapier. She can't tell if it was a fluke and praises the boy's skills. Cyan knows that he's about to get destroyed, and his expectations come to light as Ellis charges at full speed to clash against Cyan. Ellis tries her best to overwhelm Cyan, who is barely keeping up with his sister. They regain their distance with an exhausted Cyan, who thinks that his previous exchange could have been nasty if he hadn't twisted his sword. Cyan merely accidentally killed his own sister and recalled how his swordsmanship basically consisted of killing his opponents instantly. That's why it is difficult for him to fight without killing someone. He wonders how much time has passed and is making up for his weak strength by imbuing his sword with mana, except that, too, is at its limit. Wah! His sister has that Maki strength, yo. A desperate Ellis commands the earth and wind magic, casting the likes of 6-star magic on her sword. She prepares her Aqua Blade while our boy wonders if his sister really wants to kill him at this point in this mere test. Ellis is experiencing her gamer rage and doesn't want to lose at any cost. Haha, I mean, look at that thought bubble. Cyan is in a tough spot and thinks that he'll end up falling out of the castle even if he blocks his sister's tough blow. Cyan decides to trust in his attack and charges ahead. He's about to deliver a powerful strike, except Jerkin intervenes in their battle and separates the two. He holds Cyan like a toy and tells Ellis that she's going way too hard on a child opponent. Cyan was relaxed and wondered when this guy was going to show up. Ellis regains her senses and immediately apologizes to her little brother for giving up in the heat of the battle. She weeps for his consideration and wants to do her best to make sure he doesn't go to the front lines. Cyan is comforted by her warm embrace and knows that his loving sister tries too hard with everything. Aw man, Ellis is the GOAT. Ellis was the elite of the elites who scored an S in all subjects. In the Royal Academy, where only the talented gathered, she was at the top, even with her beauty as people called her God's child. From a young age, she was trained in swordsmanship and was often referred to as the future guardian of the continent alongside the oldest son, Echelle. However, not long after joining the Knights of Light, she was killed. Cyan misses his sister and hopes to protect her in this life. Ellis ponders how Jerkin is still here while the Duke himself leaves for the war. The Duke's Knight informs her that he's been issued with the Duke's orders to protect the young lord for a while in secret. Cyan confirms this as he thinks the same. He doesn't know why his father told Jerkin to act in secret, while Ellis warmly embraces her brother as if he were just a little kid. The very next day, Ellis returned to the academy. She had only come back for a bit to see her father before graduation. Cyan is whipping out his push-ups in an effort to train his body and has been solely focused on that for 2 weeks straight. He still can't ignore his biological limits as he's plateaued in his strength training. Cyan was confident in his strength in his previous life and winced at the thought. Bro is missing his muscles, haha. Emily informs Cyan of a package from Ellis. She's turned off by its putrid smell, but Cyan knows that it's Hellhound's blood that he requested his sister to get for him. It was a rare item that was only found in Lemia Valley. The blood of the demonic beasts is often considered poisonous because of its disgusting smell. However, it permanently increases the mana and the strength of the person who consumes it, and while most people think that this is a false rumor, Cyan knows all too well because of his past life experience. Emily can't believe that he's about to consume the blood, and Cyan does as intended while at the same time dissing Emily's cooking skills. He remembers her disgusting mushroom soup and thinks that it is far worse in comparison. Oof, this squeaker cannot stop dissing everyone. Cyan is somehow energized after the delicious consumption and tells Emily that he's going out for a walk. Cyan comes out in the open and thinks that it has indeed been a while since he's come here. He had anticipated this day for the last 2 weeks and knew that Jerkin wouldn't be patrolling him with his regular reports. Cyan recalls how, one day, his brother Echel received a divine revelation from the god of light, Lumendel. The contents read that an ancient temple is hidden somewhere in between the mountains. Cyan didn't fully believe it at first, but it was actually a place where the flow of mana was concentrated. He knew that the divine revelation had yet to come, so he knew this in advance. Cyan plunges the field with his magic and thinks that not even his brother knows what he's conjuring right now. Cyan has successfully torn through a pathway and is thinking of exploring the temple. He stumbles inside and recalls how different it is from last time. The same place was an ancient temple that served the god of light, Lumendel, until all of the history on this land was erased because of the god-demon war that happened 300 years ago. Cyan thinks that such a place was a miracle to exist in the mountains just behind the castle and sees the glow of the shiny blade, the owner of this temple and its majestic glory. Talk about being the SSS tier sword. Further into the past, humanity finally succeeded in driving out the Demon King's army from Velias. The Demon King's army was far stronger than the humans, except mankind found the ancient relics called the gods' weaponry, allowing them to edge out on their victory. One of those relics, the Durandi Arc, was a holy sword blessed by the god of light himself. This sword was deemed the leading cause of humanity's glorious victory against the demons, and became the very reason behind Cyan's demise in the future, as this sword lands in the hands of Echel Vert. Damn, it ends up in that scumbag's hands. Cyan thinks that the blade Durandi Arc is also responsible for his regression into the past. He inspects the blade and feels absolutely nothing. Cyan kicks the object in frustration and turns away, annoyed, wanting to tend to his troubles before leaving. He recalls how the very shadow of the sword is a mystical item of its own. Cyan reflects that one might mistake this for being a mere shadow when it is actually the polar opposite of the light. It is the darkness that stands against the holy sword, having a pathway leading to another room guarded by the altar of light. Whoa, top 10 most badass reveals right there. Cyan stumbles into this room and finds his blade, the demon's sword Karam. Cyan wields the demonic object and realizes that Karam has yet to awaken fully. He is mesmerized by wielding his favorite weapon again and wants to slay something at once. An entity of the shadows manifests itself, questioning the fearless boy who came without worry. Cyan shrugs it off and tells the monster he now owns the sword. The demon, on the other hand, thinks that Cyan made a stupid choice and immediately tries to latch onto Cyan's body. However, Cyan catches the demon and recalls how the demon wasn't as rash in his previous life. The monster is shocked at how Cyan is able to fend him off while the boy reiterates his stance on the blade. Ha! This guy is being a menace to the literal demon blade. The demonic witch is pissed and demands an explanation of his identity, realizing that Cyan just might be the successor. She feels Eru's aura exuding from Cyan's body, which confirms his position as the successor of her past master. Karam is agitated, realizing that he's just a little kid, and shows frustration in her battle. Cyan easily tackles her and notes how the demonic sword's goal is usually to take over the body of its user. Cyan even chooses to go easy on Karam and casts the demonic sword control to immobilize her. Cyan tells her that it's best for the demon to accept her position while he's still being friendly, but Karam is shocked that he can use the abilities of the blade despite their first encounter. Cyan raises the bar higher and continually makes it difficult for Karam, to the point that her head is just pummeled into the ground. Wah, he's just making a fool out of her while calling her easy at the same time. Karam accepts Cyan as her master, who thinks that he's done with the place and wonders if he should go back. Karam herself is happy to live her life freely. She uses a phantom-like state to communicate with Cyan and asks for his name. The boy introduces himself in kind, while she is still surprised that Eru chose a kid as his successor. Cyan hints at his past life and explains that he's died once before. Karam is all the more confused. The two of them stand before Duran the Ark, who is still in slumber. Cyan recalls how the blade will have to wait a whole 20 years before its owner will awaken the blade. Yikes, that's a lot of time for this guy to level up. Karam is intrigued by how he talks as if he knows the future. She's absolutely terrified when Cyan rips off a piece of Duran in the hopes of altering the course of the future. Ahaha, bro is so mad at his life that he's being a menace to his brother's weapon. Many days have passed, and Cyan has finally come to terms with the day of his challenge. The Duke meets the boy and questions his decision to go to the battlefield. Cyan reiterates with a poetic response, aiming to fight on the battlefield. The Duke tells Jurkin to open the magic scroll, while Cyan wonders if they are planning to summon something. Jurkin summons a beast at once, revealing a fiery hellhound. Cyan thinks that a low-ranked demonic beast from the Lemia Valley is an interesting challenge for his test. He also observes how the Duke and his knights are prepared to take his place in case he is defeated. The Duke reminds the boy to be responsible for every deliberate action in order to prove his resolve by passing this trial. Jurkin reminisces how the boy sought to train with him before the 3 days of the deadline. Cyan exclusively wanted to fight with the Duke's knight, even though he wanted a younger opponent for the young lord. Cyan, however, has already exhausted that approach and manages to convince the knight to help him train. Jurkin puts himself at a handicap and tells Cyan that he will only be fighting with his sword's sheath and focus on defense. Jurkin is the definition of the coolest knight, yo! Cyan requests another favor from the knight and menacingly orders him to keep their fight private. Jurkin is confused, but Cyan rushes in immediately with a powerful blow, surprising the knight's likes with just his childlike body. Cyan also shows his impressive display of speed as he sways an outstanding motion to attack Jurkin from behind. Their epic clash continues, with Cyan using his heavy blows against the knight. Cyan surrenders his defeat and knows that he can't win against the Duke's knight just yet. Bro's capping so hard right now. He thanks the knight for their helpful training session, while Jurkin is left absolutely stunned to be pushed to such limits. Jurkin, at his present, knows that Cyan can easily overcome any trial that bears its teeth at him, even the hellhound that's staring him down. Cyan's fight with the beast begins as it lunges forth. Cyan counters with his rapier and reflects on how, even at his current strength, fighting a monster would be unfavorable for him. He needed to end his battle as quickly as possible and aim to kill the beast with another strike. Cyan slays the hellhound in an overwhelming fashion, stunning the knights and impressing his father at the same time. Cyan thinks that the beast's blood could fill up quite a few bottles for him as a resource, but he knows he can't pull off any obnoxious stunts here, as they would become suspicious of him. The Duke is impressed by the boy's abilities and personally wants to meet him at the battlefront. Cyan thanks his father, while Karam peeves him for treating her like a damn kitchen knife and not deploying her. Karam feeds off of blood and wants to regain her strength, and Cyan tells her that she'll be having plentiful use in the future, something that she should look forward to. Oh yeah, something we all want to look forward to. A horde of ogres in the northwest begins their onslaught, while Duke Vert commands to set up a line of defense and orders an initiation for a restraining spell. When the ogres are restrained, the knights charge ahead to deliver lethal strikes on the monsters, defeating them with their powerful attacks. Cyan calmly observes the battle while Emily weeps for her life. Cyan recalls receiving the same nostalgic feeling on the battlefield, a place of hell like none other. Duke Vert questions his experience on the front lines, and Cyan feigns his nervousness. His father reminds the boy that no one can tell who will die in this place, advising Cyan never to let his guard down. Cyan heeds his advice and thinks that such situations are everyday experiences. There are usually 3 to 4 battles per day, and every battle has its own detailed strategy. With the capable advanced knights as core, they took care of all the monsters that tried to cross the front lines. In the tent that he is assigned to, it is the safest as it's the rearmost area. Cyan thinks he would never be able to get a chance to feed Karam because of the guards. Emily, on the other hand, is just dying of her fears. Yet when Cyan tells her to pack her stuff and return, Emily howls at him because she is worried for the boy who can't do anything on his own. She thinks that he'll be left all alone with the monsters with no one to take care of him. Cyan's annoyed and nearly wants to chase his maid away for disrespecting her master. Cyan carefully sets up a doll in his bed, while Emily thinks that he's planning to go out and exercise. Cyan tells her to take care of things as usual and sneaks out. He internalizes how the front lines are usually strengthened even at night, which means that if he had moved earlier, his mobility would have been vastly hindered. Cyan deploys his fog's descent move and aims to take down a horde of hellhounds in the area. He's more than thrilled to use Karam to her fullest and manifest the murderous blade at once. The hellhounds begin their charge against the boy, who welcomes the beasts while cutting them apart. Cyan uses his rushing fog storm and absolutely massacres the hellhounds. By the time he is done with the beasts, Cyan collects their blood and strengthens his magic as a consequence. Karam is just having the time of life as well, while Cyan is prepared to take down many monsters all by himself. Bro is just staring them down on business. Look at him. Switching to a scene of cavalry, the royal princess of the empire aims to assist her father in his tours. She doesn't want her assistant to peeve her about the matter, so she receives news about the youngest son of the Vert family, who also happens to be on the front lines. The royal princess is surprised when she realizes that Duke Vert brought his youngest son to the battlefield. When she is told to get along with the boy, the royal princess shies away from the opportunity and reluctantly asks for the boy's name. When told about Cyan Vert, she gazes out the night sky in her stunning beauty, wondering about the boy. Back on the bloody battlefield, Duke Vert orders his men to check if anyone is injured after conquering yet another battle. He also takes a look at Cyan and asks the boy if he is adjusting to life at the front. Cyan tells his father that he's learning something new every day, contrary to the expectations of the Duke. Duke Vert expresses his pride in his son, a feeling all too unfamiliar for Cyan. The Duke tells him that he's got something important to say to him tomorrow and wants to meet the boy at his tent. Cyan is shocked at his father's kind demeanor and agrees to meet him. That night, Cyan faces his true battle against a gigantic deathworm. He is surprised because this beast usually appears deeper into the valley. Karam thinks that her master is struggling in the fight and wants to take over for a bit, but Cyan is skeptical of her intentions. Karam reminds Cyan that the worm regenerates after receiving shallow injuries, which means it wouldn't be best to attack him continuously. Damn, that's one OP opponent. Cyan knows that she's right and also knows that it will only prolong the battle. Even though it's been a month since he's come to the front lines and has drunk the blood of many monsters, his strength still isn't enough. Forced to use his weapon, he uses the ninth form of the blade, commanding a sword manifestation to absolutely demolish the thick skin of the worm. Cyan then uses the 8 fluttering paddles arrangement, beautifully slashing apart the worm's body and tearing it to pieces. Man, just look at that majestic action sequence. Meanwhile, the knights inspect the bodies of their demonic foes and wonder if it was another beast who did this. Duke Vert thinks that they should inspect the area at once and finds the sword traces to be quite familiar. Jurkin calls for his king's attention and showcases the destroyed body of the monster known as the Deathworm. Duke Vert is shocked and wonders how a beast so massive could be slain in such a way. He wonders if this was the work of an organization. Cyan contemplates how the move known as demonic sword manifestation basically allows Karam to take over his body so that she can use her powers to the fullest extent. However, Karam can also wholly take over him if he happens to let his guard slip. Cyan thinks that this is why his gamble to take down one monster is still not well advised for him. He drank the Deathworm's blood and found his body to be sore. Karam chimes in and shares that Cyan's exterior is that of a kid, and in regards to all of her deductions, she is confident that he's died once and is a regressor from the future. Yeah, thanks for catching on, Sherlock. Cyan thinks that she's far too slow for that realization, as he's already made it obvious enough. Karam howls at him for not explaining a crap about the details. She thinks that killing someone of his caliber must have been a difficult feat and feels that the owner of the Duran D Arc killed him. She thinks that he was either killed in a duel or betrayed, and marks the second possibility to be more profound because of his reaction to the Holy Sword. Karam accurately deduces that Cyan's goal is to exact revenge, and she makes it clear to him that if he were to lose in one way or another, she would swallow his soul and take over. Cyan snaps the shut and tells the demon that he's no idiot. He reflects on how she hasn't changed a bit from her previous life. Cyan finds an irregular arrangement of the knights and wonders what's special. Emily informs him that a high-level monster's corpse was discovered near the entrance of the valley, which worries him as he knows that this is about the Deathworm. She also explains that it is rare to see the high-level monster near their camp, but Cyan is concerned for more information on his side. The Duke's Meg barges into the discussion and tells Cyan that his father wants to see the boy right away. Cyan is concerned and knows that he can't take care of the corpses because of the soldiers. He planned to enjoy a quiet life before entering the academy, but now it's become troublesome for him. Cyan greets his father yet again and thinks that Duke Vert would immediately hold him suspicious. He is burdened by the excuse he would have to make to explain his actions. Duke Vert tells the boy to have a seat and claims to want to be direct. He questions the boy's location from last night. Cyan responds that he was resting early in his bed. Duke Vert takes apart his excuse in his head and knows that the sword traces match up with Cyan's abilities. He He wonders if he's just overthinking things and can't believe that a child this young is capable of slaying a death worm. Cyan asks for his father's attention, who seems to be muddled in thought. Duke Vert shares that they intend to look more into the matter, yet they're certain that it's the doing of a secret assassin organization known as Mist. Cyan feigns ignorance and asks for information. Duke Vert explains that this organization has existed since ancient times, and while their goals are unknown, they have assassinated countless nobles under the excuse of purification. They're rather infamous for leaving behind a black fog wherever they are, except one day, they all disappeared with the last setting over 300 years ago. However, just by observing the corpse of the death worm from last night, Duke Vert could observe the black fog, which is a trace left behind by Eru, the god of darkness whom the Mist organization worshipped. Duke Vert poses that this very organization slayed the death worm and the other demonic beasts. Cyan internalizes his father's impressive deduction skills, being able to pinpoint the culprit despite the organization existing centuries back. Duke Vert shares and advises Cyan to be careful. He wants to notify the Empire for a further investigation into the matter. Cyan is stunned that his father chose to believe him this time. Duke Vert contemplates how it would be impossible for the little boy to be involved in this organization. If only you knew about how OP your kid is. On a separate note, he asks Cyan about their special visitor today. Cyan apparently knows that their Royal Highness will be arriving. Duke Vert uncharacteristically asks Cyan for a favor. The scene switches to the celebrations of the Emperor's arrival, as the Duke and Lord of Velius, Cyan's father, greets the Honorable Emperor in all his glory. The Emperor graces the man in his presence and tells him not to be so polite as they once used to be old friends. He also observes the young child called Cyan, who treats the Emperor with the utmost respect in this unfavorable and rough environment. Cyan finds himself baffled. The favor was basically to appeal to himself as Duke Vert's son, as he has always lived a quiet life in the past every time the Emperor visited. To return the favor, the Emperor tells him that he, too, wants to introduce someone important. He welcomes the fifth princess of the Wusif Empire, the royal princess known as Erin Severus. Erin's name plagues Cyan's mind as she is the tragic fifth princess. He remembers how his father told Cyan to escort Erin for a day in order to keep her company, as they were the same age. He also tells Cyan that they would share a fate at the academy as well. Cyan miserably recalls seeing her in his past life and saw her only a few times between classes. Duke Vert thinks that he should lean towards the royal family members positively so that they can get along well. Cyan, on the other hand, doesn't really want to do it but chooses to comply. Knowing his father's intentions, he wants the two of them to develop a friendship like his own with the Emperor. However, he picked the wrong person for it as Cyan thinks that she can't be his friend. And that is the only future he is sure of. Cyan wants to remain obedient for a while, and Erin queries him about the color of the river. Cyan explains that the Blood River is a stream that runs through the entirety of the Lemia Valley, and there isn't any complex reason for its stark red color. The demonic beasts who are old or injured instinctively jump into this river, and their corpses eventually melt into the stream, turning it red from the decomposition of their mana. Man, that's such an interesting piece of lore. Erin realizes that it's just the remains of the monsters, while Cyan tells her that they love to drink and bathe in it. Erin questions what lies at the end of the river, and Cyan replies that there is a demon realm. Erin is peeved, and Cyan tells her that following the stream could lead to meeting the Demon King himself. He is entertained just by making fun of her in the meantime. They observe a light in the sky. Cyan explains that this yellow light signifies the incoming demonic beasts. Erin is shocked to learn that there are demonic beasts. Duke Vert summons an order to protect the Emperor, while his Guardian Knight division takes care of the 3rd sentry post aimed for battle. The Emperor rejects his order and tells the Duke that he, too, wants to share a part of the battle. Duke Vert has no choice but to comply. The Emperor tells his troops that they will join the demonic beast raid until they've demolished the last of the monsters. Duke Vert also orders Cyan to join, who happily takes part in the battle. Erin is shocked to learn that this young boy can slay demonic beasts, and begs to be taken along. She throws a tantrum because they're the same age, but Cyan reminds her that this is no playground. Cyan uses Jerkin, who stands behind Erin menacingly, waiting to take her back to the camps. Bro is just exerting his alpha male energy, goddamn. Erin is annoyed and voices her complaint, and Cyan lashes at her, reminding the girl that many knights would inevitably die because of her stubbornness in this gruesome war. He doesn't hold back in his approach and ends up making her cry, leaving her with Jerkin to weep. And now you know, folks, that this man is no simp. Onto the battlefield. Many knights are being swallowed by a giant slug-like creature. Dubvert commands the forces to take formation and not leave a single one behind. The soldiers charge ahead for their epic battle.